But to begin the news, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has disclosed to Parliament the coronavirus spread or infection will ultimately cost the Ghanaian economy some 9.5 billion Ghana cedis just this year alone. Now, the virus would also reduce projected GDP growth projections from 6.8% to about 1.5%. He made these comments when he addressed Parliament on how the virus is negatively going to impact the Ghanaian economy.
Mr. Speaker, the reason why every single person in this country must exercise the highest level of self-discipline is evidently clear in the economic numbers. The greater the level of self-discipline and civic responsibility we maintain in observing the enhanced protocols in hygiene and social distancing, the greater chances we have in avoiding mass job losses and its concomitant hardships. Already, Mr. Speaker, we are experiencing slowdown in economic activities in the various sectors of the economy as a result of the pandemic. This will altogether slow down economic growth considerably. Even though events on the pandemic are still unfolding, a preliminary analysis of the impact of the coronavirus menace on the real sector shows that the 2020 projected real GDP growth rate could decline, Mr. Speaker, from 6.8% to 2.6% with infection and cases, and 1.5% with a partial lockdown. Mr. Speaker, the projected growth will further worsen in the event of a full lockdown.
Ken Ofori-Atta also says a 1 billion Ghana cedi COVID-19 alleviation program, which will be laid before Parliament for its approval, and $100 million inflows into Ghana's economy from international agencies and stabilization fund could help cushion the economy. He says some of these resources will also come from the Heritage Fund for expenditure.
Why to mitigate the impact of the coronavirus on business and households and ensure that economic activities are sustained while minimizing job losses, the President on Friday, March 27, 2020, announced the establishment of the Coronavirus Alleviation Program, the CAP. The Ministry of Finance will immediately release an amount of 1 billion Ghana cedis upon approval by Parliament. The Ministry is proposing to use the equivalent of US $290 million from the Stabilization Fund for this. The CAP will focus on areas that will provide maximum results in alleviating the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, with a focus on protecting against job losses, protecting livelihoods, supporting small businesses, and ensuring the program is efficiently and sustainably implemented. The CAP will seek additional funding for the following purposes: promotion of selected industries to shore up production for export and import substitution, to support SMEs and create jobs, to partner with pension funds and insurance funds, to create guarantees and first loss instruments to promote business. Mr. Speaker, my duty as Finance Minister is to begin speedily and responsibly the process of disbursing the funds immediately the amount is approved by this House. Targeted businesses and households would include those in the health sector, education sector, hospitality industry, SMEs, and households hit hard by the coronavirus. The specific details of the CAP and the instruments to allocate the resources will be fashioned out shortly.
Moving on, did you know that you could land in jail for 14 years for disobeying government social distancing directives? And for this reason, members of the public, that is all of us, are being urged to respect the restrictions imposed by the president. The Imposition of Restriction Act slaps 1,000 to 5,000 penalty in its fine on those who breach the law, which also translates into a 12,000 to 60,000 Ghana cedi fine. Ranking member on Parliament's Constitution and Legal Affairs Committee, Nusa Fusenu, explains in default, you could also spend up to 14 years in jail. He, however, thinks the sentencing regime is unreasonable because the crime here isn't a felony.
Initially, most of the committee members were of the view that because it's a virus which we don't simply understand, at that time that we were considering the bill, the president had issued some executive measures pursuant to his executive authority under Article 58. and which was largely being complied with. So members of the committee were of the view that the sentencing regime should be minimal because people were already voluntarily complying. But on the floor of the House, a new idea came up. I mean, people thought that we should impose stricter punishment. And so on the floor of the House, the Parliament settled for 1,000 minimum, 1,000 units minimum, and 5,000 maximum. Now, a penalty unit is 12 cedis. So 1,000 means 12,000 Ghana cedis. So if a person breaches the executive instrument issued just recently, that person minimum is going to pay 12,000 Ghana cedis. Maximum is going to pay 60,000 Ghana cedis.
And let's tell ourselves something that we all have not averted our minds to, and that is the wealthy and middle class may have adequately prepared for the partial lockdown, which is in day 2, by stocking food and other essentials. But many poor Ghanaians who do not trade in essential items say this restriction period is ultimately a real squeeze for their earnings. Joy News' Henry Kwesi Bedu visited a community near us, Nima, one of Ghana's biggest slums, and reports many people are just crying for government support.
Nima looks calm as residents observe the president's directive to control the spread of the coronavirus. Food vendors here continue to sell. Those who do not sell essential items sit idle as their shops remain closed. Others have no option but to engage in games in the community. Practicing social distancing here is ignored as many sit in groups for idle conversations. 55-year-old Ajo lives in a compound house of about 40 occupants. She takes care of her mother and auntie, both old and frail. She's unable to make ends meet on her meager laundry profits of averagely 15 cedis a day. The restriction has locked her down as she's unable to move to restricted areas to do the laundry. Ajo laments her family only had provisions for a few days, adding no work would mean hunger.
My
customers have banned me from coming to their houses because of the virus. Yesterday, I went to the market with 100 cedis and bought provisions for a few days. Foodstuff prices have been increased. If government could help, the time is now. How do I take care of my auntie and mother now?
Ajo represents many Ghanaians living in slums who will have a difficulty staying indoors without any saved income. Some residents say they will skip lunch and eat only breakfast and supper to get through the restriction season. Isa, a single father of 4, says he survives by trading in goods from neighboring countries, but for now, the borders are locked.
Me, I'm a trader like this. I'm going far from the country, and then I came back buying charcoal and this thing, onion, salt, and then this thing, bring it for here, from Niger to here. So now I stop. I can't go. And then I block for the house, and then I get children almost getting to 7 with me. I have to feed them. You see, if I get some small liters of money spending, within 2-3 days, you know, the children, then the money finish. If the money finish, I can't go out and to find another money to be feeding them. So it's a big problem from that area.
Some of the residents say, although they support the restriction, hunger may just kill them if government does not support them.
Me like this, I'm a mechanic, and I didn't gather much more house so that I can take and spend with the number of days that he has given. You see, if I don't go out, I don't get anything for my family. I didn't put anything, or I didn't pile anything down in my room for my family, or to think like government will bring this quarantine, this days, number of days that I should quarantine myself inside the room. So what will I get if I didn't go out? You see, I have to go out and get something for my family. And we all here, everybody get his handwork. And the government didn't give us any support. How can we feed ourselves in home? If the government can be possible to, consider us and then help us with more food, and then government with what and little of money, and then you see the people can be staying, and then they can't get any problem from the house.
Many people here are cramped in small spaces, but Kwabena Afievo believes the restrictions, the directives, and the precautionary measures deployed here will be effective.
The lockdown is very important to lock down to avoid the spreading of the sickness, as I said it. Yes. But
what have you observed in Nima?
What I observe is like Nima is very crowded places that wherever you go, every corner in Nima, you will see a lot of people. But today, because of the lockdown, from yesterday going, we can't see people. Even this particular place, you will be seeing people around, a lot of people gathered together in group. But because of the lockdown, people are not on the street again. I think most of them are in the house due to this coronavirus.
The story highlights how difficult it may be for many developing countries to tackle the virus without suspending the livelihoods of many poor people. Henry Kwesibedu's report for Joy News.
And in the ending shot, you could see that the number of commercial vehicles that we call trotro still moving on the road, even though sporadically. And some of the drivers steering those wheels of these trotro, especially plying the Accra-Kaswa Road, have expressed dissatisfaction over the current enforcement of social distancing in commercial buses. According to them, the police service appears to be calling for more than what drivers and the GPRT, for example, agreed on. They spoke to PSC Nanaya Osafo, who has also been to part of the Greater Accra region and has more in the following report.
Sounds from the Kaswa toll booth as stationed police personnel check for proper sitting arrangement in commercial buses in compliance with the social distancing protocols by officials. Some passengers are asked to sit properly. Others, who are considered as overload for the sake of the times, are asked to alight. The drivers are not excited about the move.
Mi imagine say yes small cars no move for 22 na ye 44 no yi ba ko na ka 33 ba say na ye wonu say e was say go park car no na ye free say by this time they want to for 22 enya juma so be say anya ka wona 6 e dey am command bi fi obo ase na me ba ba be dru on wo ma yes mo bi an fenipa di empty sa na me di free ase obo ase sa na me dey dru ye di traffic sa ye dodge for police ye san ye ye fa ha almost the entire etina minimum the cost lockdown mati by him say almost shame la say cars no ye load 33 wa load 44 no fa 33 wa fa 33 to fa 22 na emu na emu ye free ba mi be say mi ka obi ani.
A vehicle approaches filled to the brim with goods and people. The officers are not only furious with the major breach of lockdown laws, but the fact that the passengers and the driver seem to have no idea of a lockdown. But the drivers are not the only people breaking the rules. Although Joy News observed from parts of Tudu, Agbogbloshie and Kantamanto that many citizens had complied with the directives, there were others who were also out on the streets, including a cobbler.
Na unim say emra say ma ho kwan na ma kwan say na wotu wa
oh minim say emra ma ho kwan sa de mu si a wogina okura no mpabo akura betima ya ma si a wogina hoyi after okura etia meye
He has a polish here, and he does what we call in local terms shoe shine, cobbler duties. I asked him why he's operating here as at this time, given that this might be described as many as a non-essential service. He says, well, he doesn't mind. He continues his job. Even if we, the team, join youth, need a service, he can provide for us instantly.
I'm Ofosu Free, and I'm not a worker. I'm just roaming about. I'm a prisoner. I came from Nsawam prison last week. So as I came, I don't have money to go back to my hometown.
This is all just the beginning, as 13 days remain in the nationwide lockdown. PSA Nana Yaosafo, Joy News.
And still on the road in these times, 2 cargo trucks each carrying over 40 passengers, including children, bound for Wale Wale in the northeast region from Accra, have been forced to return. Now, they were escaping the partial lockdown, which started the early hours of Monday. 2 drivers had covered the tracks to outwit security officers on the highway, but they were intercepted at Ejiso in the Ashanti region. Nana Sensu Mensah has more in this report.
It's almost 2 weeks holiday now, you see. And Saturday they were called every baby.
The people, mostly headquarters and their children, say they are being forced by the lockdown to return to the north because they have no shelter to stay indoors in Accra. One of them, who identifies herself as Adiza, they would better off in Wale Wale than Accra during the restriction period.
Your fort in the corner and think I have fought and can corner of once I have corner young fuck away. And so I want you to buy into the air. You have fruka win.
Didn't I move north of Accra?
Yaren down Moka and I burn off. She says,
we are leaving Accra for the north because of the spread of the virus. We don't have any place to sleep, so we are stranded at Accra.
You need them, you're double.
What happened to him?
Tama station. Na Benuza, that's CMB. Traffic lights.
You say, when you first see Masada Mako and crying, Hamon.
With the lockdown, we joined this cargo car because there was no bus at the station. The lockdown has affected us. We don't even have food stocks to feed our families. If we stay in Accra, we are going to Wale Wale, else we will die of hunger in Accra.
The drivers say they accepted to transport the women and girls on humanitarian grounds because they had been stranded at the bus terminal for days.
Bolga. My name is Atia Bolga from Bolga. So I just did Accra, and they called me that our village people did there. They don't get car, so they organized to come and take them. I said no, the car is not passenger car, so I can't pick them. They said we are begging me because that place, they don't have sleeping place. They are suffering. Some are pregnant, some are born twins, some are children. So I should help them. So I said okay.
Ejiso Municipal Chief Executive Beatrice Sawadeche says she's surprised the 2 trucks managed to outwit security at all checkpoints until they were found out at Ejiso. She wants military presence at all police checkpoints.
I just don't understand. There are about 10 policemen over there. So how will you be there and these cars will be crossing? And you are supposed to know better. If the cars are coming, you should stop them for them to go back to Accra, wherever they are coming from. But they've been able to cross. They've been able to cross to Ejiso. So it was here that I came to see the first one, which was covered with tapoli. Human beings were inside, and the car was covered with tapoli. So I told the policeman to put the driver into cells for me to go to Kubasi Barrier to check how they were managed to cross the barrier to Ejiso. Yes.
So what is going to happen to them? Are you going to hold them and quarantine them before you leave them?
Where are we going to put all these people to quarantine them? So either they take them back to Accra, where they are bringing them. Because at Jesu here, we don't have any place to place them.
As these women and girls are returned to Accra, there are concerns they could be at risk of infection, having crammed themselves into the trucks without observing social distancing. Authorities will have to find appropriate ways to address their concerns in the fight against COVID-19. Nana Asensumensa, reporting for Joy News.
Now the movements are a concern, and that is why comprehensively we want to analyze day one, look forward to day two, which has already started. We're in about 6 hours and some 30 minutes into day two of the lockdown, and that is why we're inviting or streaming into the studio Sheila Abeye Batman. She is Director General, Police Public Affairs, to ask her critically, if you look at the terms of the lockdown and the guidelines and the way it's being operationalized, is that the way the regulations and then the guidelines and the plan had been intended? Okay, and so please make sure that you join us with your own views as well. If you've witnessed some few things in the first day of the lockdown and you want to contribute, I think we'll love that. We'll also have Joseph Akable just close to a community just around Lagos Town, Newtown around us, so we'll get to know. Alongside also, we know the Chief Justice has also ordered the courts to adjourn cases to May, June, possibly, because of the lockdown and the spread of the coronavirus. Now, although the president exempted members of the judiciary from a partial lockdown, Justice Eninia, the Chief Justice, said lawyers, litigants, and other court users do not fall under the exempt category and must therefore stay home. We will be assessing this implication on the legal year, the likely effect on adjudication of cases especially, and how lawyers themselves, chambers, have planned their year, knowing that they have a legal vacation in October. Now, Martin Kpebu is an experienced lawyer. He will also be joining us in the studio. The Finance Minister also on Monday briefed Parliament. Look, it is going to impact, I'm talking coronavirus, impact the economy, and there's a 1 billion Ghana cedi cushion to make sure that we're able to hold on as a country, even though projections now have they've now been reduced to some 1.5% of GDP. We'll see how it goes with all this analysis. As we also have some analysis with Dr. Lord Mensah. He's a senior lecturer at the Finance Department of the University of Ghana Business School. Make sure you join us for these conversations. We would all be well educated, and also we will open the phone lines for you. And we're back. We hope that you got some education. Mama V, good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Roland. It's day two of the partial lockdown in Accra and in Kumasi.
Well, definitely.
I don't know. I mean,
I wanted to ask you about your own assessment of the lockdown. You know, yesterday, I just thought that we're not... I don't know whether what we did or what we saw in the first day is what we're told would be done in relation to our own conceptualized lockdown, but you know.
Well, I didn't see any roadblocks on my road yesterday. I didn't see today as well. So, but I saw very fewer vehicles today.
Okay.
Less people also on the road trying to get vehicles.
Right.
So I think gradually the message is, because if you come out and you don't get a vehicle, you won't come out tomorrow.
All right.
You get what I mean? So I guess with time, we'll even see less people coming into the, the main townships to do business.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a lot of roadblocks as it is. So barricades of the police at every interspersed area, Spinters, Tema, Ashaiman, and so I thought, yes, the police were present.
Okay. I see that on the Kaswa Road is different, but on my stretch, on the Pokwasi stretch, unless they come after I've passed, baby. But I mean, it's really, really quiet. I still can't get used to the fact that things are really, really quiet these days. And we're beginning to see fewer newspapers as well. Some of them are taking a break.
Yeah, we only do have 3 today.
Exactly. But the Finder announced last week that it was going to take a break for the period that we're in this partial lockdown.
So too did the Dispatch, the Daily Dispatch.
All right, so we'll do the papers that we have. We'll go to myjoyonline.com. We'll touch base with the international media as well to see what they are reporting on this day. So let's start off. I'll do the Daily Graphic and the Ghanaian Times. First, the Daily Graphic newspaper. On the front page of the Graphic, $100 million COVID-19 fund ready for disbursement, according to the finance minister who appeared before Parliament on Monday. First day of restriction. Travelers turn tricksters, desperate to move into regions. We've seen all sorts of tricks on the road. And the police, I think the one that's very disturbing is the one that Roland presented in the AM News with those who got to Ejusu before it was discovered, considering there were that many and we had quite a number of checks on the road. So what happened to all the roadblocks? I mean, what do they check really when they see vehicles is the question that a lot of us have been asking following that disclosure, if you like, in Ejusu. But 37 Tamale hospital staff quarantine. 37 Tamale hospital staff quarantine. That's a huge number, and that's what happens when we are careless. The few medical staff that we have will have to go under mandatory quarantine for 2 weeks before they are cleared to come back to work if they don't have the virus. ADB votes 1 million Ghana cedis for COVID-19 fights. Airbus SE Ghana bribery. Special prosecutor invites Samuel Adam Mahama, 3 others. And sadly, because of COVID, nothing else seemed important but coronavirus. In the center spread of the Daily Graphic newspaper, we will check, but let's go to the back page first. Let's do the back page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. 246 markets in Bono East and Ahafo disinfected, and that's on the back page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. GCB supports judicial service to fight COVID-19. The judicial service, well, the Chief Justice signed a statement yesterday on some directives for the judicial service. It would affect you if you're a litigant. So we'll share a lot of details with you and also speak to a private legal practitioner, a man who is very familiar with our courts, Mr. Martin Pebble, this morning. Let me do the last paper I have, which is the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Front page of the Ghanaian Times, Accra Kumasi deserted on first day of 14-day lockdown. Don't stockpile food. There is enough for all year. Agric Minister to public. Now, when I hear this, there are a few questions I want to ask. Like if you go to the market right now, you won't get, if you didn't shop last week, you won't get the things that you would need, like all of it. Do you get what I mean?
Yes, I get you.
You won't get everything that you would require for your home. So I guess the talk should have been accompanied by something. That way people would have been, believed in the fact that, oh, don't stock because you'd get it. Right now, when you go to the market, there are very few traders even in the market trying to sell food stuff. 37,000, let's go back to the front page of the Ghanaian Times. 37,000 police, co-military personnel deployed to enforce lockdown. Local government ministry, NADMO, Zoom Lion spray over 168 markets in 3 regions to prevent spread of COVID-19. And this activity will continue tomorrow, Wednesday. In the center spread, well, details of the stories on the front page, essentially in the center spread of the paper. So let's check what's on the back page. Former President Mahama donates to Rich Hospital. UPNMG, that's the Union of Professional Nurses and Midwives, Ghana, donates sanitary items to WA Municipal Hospital. So you see that COVID is also limiting contents of news these days. That's what you find when you grab the Ghanaian Times newspaper, front, back page. I wonder if you at home, you get out to buy the newspapers at least, with everything else going so quiet these days. Roland will do the BNFT, the Business and Financial Times.
Yeah, and it's focusing on one of our topmost stories and conversations this morning. We'll be having, streaming into the studio, Dr. Lord Mensah. He is a senior lecturer with the Finance Department of the University of Ghana, and that conversation is aptly Just a little highlighted as we go deeply into it this morning with Dr. Lord Mensah on the front page of the Business and Financial Times. And it says COVID-19. And before today, the Business and Financial Times had always prefaced its main headlines with Coronanomics. It just shows you the impact, and the impact is steep. Oforiatta counts 9.5 billion Ghana cedi cost the economy. Crude oil 5.6 billion Ghana cedis. Non-oil tax revenue 2.2 billion Ghana cedis. And COVID-19 alleviation plan is expected to have a fund of some 1 billion Ghana cedis. And currently, China has had, based on what the observers has said, or the observer has said, has now had its projections now pegged at 0.1. That is, if the virus keeps affecting other countries the rate at which it is. And that is a big measure by way this has impacted our multilateral partners who contribute about 60% to Ghana's budget, okay? And it should be a concern for all of us, whether you're a business leader, you work within a corporate institution or not. Other stories on the front page of the Business and Financial Times. Enough food available. Don't stock at high prices. The Greek minister is saying, and yesterday, Mama Via was having a conversation with a friend on one of our platforms, and I said, it looks like our top leaders are speaking to the real issues. The plans have been outlined. It's the implementation at the lower level that I believe is a bit fraught with some difficulties, because when the minister speaks, then we need to have quickly somebody checking on the road that people don't travel in and out. You go to Agbogloshi, etc. Tell them, look, don't move. And we've seen the arrest in Ejiso, for example, culminating in all
this
this.
call about don't stockpile, I mean, isn't it coming a bit too late? I mean, it's happened already.
Yes, definitely. That's what we mean by all these conversations. Also on the front page of the Business and Financial Times, Mama V, it says ZPay becomes first non-bank institution to secure mobile money license. So we're going to have mobile ZPay mobile money, ZPay Momo. All right.
Okay, so with the newspapers down, let's turn our attention to myjoyonline.com. We've got plenty of stories on myjoyonline.com. We'll tell you what we're reporting. We also touch base with the BBC. Check out some of the African stories. Quite a number of countries in Africa also on lockdown. But on myjoyonline.com, government denies claims some state officials have tested positive for coronavirus. Details there. And this one that made rounds, particularly yesterday, medical doctor at Lekma Hospital tests positive for coronavirus. Well, this was actually disclosed. A medical doctor at the Lekma Hospital at Teshi has tested positive for the infectious coronavirus. The Lejekuku constituency legislator Bernard Okoboy has confirmed. According to him, the Ghana Health Service, and this is the story on my jawline, the Ghana Health Service has already accounted for the unnamed doctor in the number of cases recorded in Ghana. He further announced that the Lekma Hospital will be shut down for disinfection today, Tuesday, March 31st. Meanwhile, it is alleged that the doctor operated on a pregnant woman before testing for the virus. He also reportedly attended to several pregnant women. The Ghana Health Service has so far confirmed 152 coronavirus cases in the country, with 5 deaths and 2 recoveries. Absolutely very disturbing, the fact that the Lekma Hospital will have to be shut and a disinfection exercise carried out today. Let's go back to myjoyonline.com. Coronavirus, minority vows to resist attempts by government to draw from Heritage Fund. 28 courts in Accra and Kumasi designated for only lockdown-related cases. If you have a case ongoing, what does it mean? What would it mean if you are just about going as well? We'll get Mr. Martin Pebu to help us with some of the answers. Coronavirus pandemic to cost economy over 9 billion Ghana cedis, according to Finance Minister. Ashanti Region Police vow to deal ruthlessly with lockdown offenders. 2 on mandatory quarantine in Bongo test negative for coronavirus. That's good news. Ablakwa makes 10 substitute proposals to government instead of depleting Heritage Fund. Police arrest Florida pastor for holding church services despite stay-at-home order. These are some of the stories on myjoyonline.com. Let's see what the BBC brings this morning, Roland.
Well, let's go through the BBC. A lot of stories, and again, These stories will tell you where we're heading as a world. It says World Bank warns of virus economic pain for Asia. The bank says major disruption to the economy across Asia and the Pacific seems unavoidable. We're talking about Asia. One of the big players is China. Apart from the United States, the biggest economy, China following closely until the virus hit us, wreaking the havoc that it is. China was supposed to have overtaking the United States based on projections.
But interestingly, Wuhan, it's been like a week since they recorded new coronavirus cases. They're beginning to losing the restrictions people are allowed to go out. So things are beginning to normalize after they went under lockdown sometime in January this year.
Yeah, definitely. And factories have started working as well, just in small numbers. But those cases now coming in are just from outside China as it is, and they're recording smaller numbers. We also do have Sierra Leone overturns ban on pregnant schoolgirls, other stories there, but this one breaks my heart. The Zimbabwean coronavirus victim died alone and scared, was a leading young broadcaster. Journalist in there.
I wanted to share a bit about this, you know, the Sierra Leone case that you just mentioned. So there was a ban introduced back in 2015 as schools reopened after the Ebola crisis, which saw a rise in pregnancies among school-age girls. And so the courts in the country ruled in December that the girls were discriminated against and their human rights violated. Teenage pregnancy is a huge issue in Sierra Leone. So this overturned a 5-year law barring pregnant girls from going to school is such big news in Sierra Leone. So amid coronavirus, there are other things also happening.
Oh, definitely. It's now time for all of us to turn to sports. Benedict Owusu is here. Greatly impacted is the world of sports. And again, the stories keep trickling in, and Benedict is here with us.
I can't wrap my head around what Benedict is coming to share with us today. I really don't know. There's no action.
No action. Even
at least in those games that we follow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the popular ones. Even though the Belarusian league is still on.
Yeah, except that we know that people who are active in sports are beginning to raise funds for COVID-19. So I am curious. I'm sure you're curious as well. Let's see what Benedict brings in sports.
Please go ahead.
The finance minister was in Parliament yesterday, presented, you know, very important things in terms of what we have to do as a country, where we are with our economy, how much is going into our fight against COVID-19. It looks like we're going to be touching the Heritage Fund, which the minority is not happy about. We've seen Mr. Blakwa, for instance, giving us substitute. But today we're exploring the issues as presented in Parliament by the Finance Minister. Roland Walker is handling that conversation. Joining us on Skype is Dr. Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School. That conversation is on right now. Roland.
Yeah. You know, anything about the economy would always send shivers down our spine, especially if you tend to relate and work with corporate bodies, because it also affects their profitability objectives. But as a country, this is impacting us 9.5 billion as it is. And Dr. Lord Mensah is joining us. He is a senior lecturer, the finance department of the University of Ghana Business School. A big conversation that we want to have this morning. And straight away, let's get it grooving. Good morning to you, Dr. Lord Mensah. Can you hear me through the screen?
Good morning.
Great. Even before the finance minister's address to the plenary or to Parliament, what were you, being the science, picking on the ground as far as relatedly our economy was concerned?
Oh, yes. I'm not surprised the finance minister will go to Parliament for a statement as such. We're not at the mid of the year yet, but then the information trickling in and information that was coming out around the globe and even getting to us as a country, for me, it deems it fit for him to go to Parliament to go and make that statement. Now, remember, Ghana is well integrated to the global trade, you know, when it comes to goods and services flow. Now, if you take our economy as a structure, you realize that the first 5 of our export destination comprises of the North America, the European countries, and then China. And then even our import sources, China forms part of the first 5. So when this coronavirus came to hit China, I knew very well that it would definitely get here. Remember, this disease flows with economics, and it goes with economic activities. So anywhere, you see strong integration with China, you will see this disease going there. And when it gets there, it has a way of crippling into the economy. And we should understand that health crisis always built up into economic crisis. Why is it so? Because economies are built around agents, and the agents are individuals and institutions. Institutions are even managed by, individuals. And when these agents are touched by any disease or any sickness, definitely it's going to retard, the flow of the economy. And so I'm not surprised to see the finance minister at Parliament as of yesterday.
You take a look at before now, or even though these figures are still relevant, the top 3 economies, we had the United States of America, China, and Japan following subsequently. And you look at what the projections were. Of course, China was supposed, after the 2021, 22, 23, 25 period, projected to overtake the United States. But these economies have impacted negatively on themselves because of the balance of trade in between or among those countries, especially. You look at China and the United States, the European Union and China. Now, how will the effect of coronavirus have a great implication on the way we do trade with these countries in the first place, before we even talk about how they affect our economy as a country?
Okay, Ghana is an import-driven economy, i.e. we import more than what we export. And as a result of that, anytime our ports get vibrant, that is when our economies also get vibrant. If you listen to the finance minister carefully, he made mention that containers are not arriving as expected. And that should tell you that the port is getting frozen every now and then as a result of our import sources and where most of our imports are coming from, having this coronavirus. And so therefore, if you take the port and the port is not active, you ask yourself, where are we going to get the goods? And then possibly look at the services around those goods, in-house or in Ghana. And so if our ports are not active, then obviously you should expect that in-country, we're not going to be active in terms of economic, because our economy, that is the Ghanaian economy, is typically, economy that relies on, foreign inflows. That is goods and services that are coming from somewhere. So when the product gets in, that is when we attach most of the services to it by moving it from one point to the other. And out of that, government gets its revenue here and there. Apart from, the import duties that we are losing, we're also losing some essential taxes in-house as a result of not having enough goods to move around. So this issue would definitely have impact on our economy.
Look, the reality is that even for manufacturing, for those who tend to do it locally, they tend to source a lot of the raw materials from China and the Far East countries, etc. How are these, looking at how the finance minister has well articulated some of these negatives on the projections so far by way of the revenue that will be generated locally, on the medium to long-term projections of the country and the sectors that we have, manufacturing, agriculture, and the other value chains?
Yes, clearly, it's clear that most of the input for our manufacturing sector and the agriculture sector are imported, and mostly imported from China. And so if Chinese is having a problem with coronavirus, it means in-house they themselves will struggle. And for them to pick up the economies and then restructure it, for them to look at exporting to other economies, it would take some time. And that is how we are going to fill it in the medium to long term. That is a way of having this our integration of trade with China coming down over the years ahead of us. So effectively, you could see clearly that we've started having the toll. As containers are not arriving, obviously it's going to have impact on our input to some of the sectors of the economy. Remember, Ghana is an import-driven economy, as I said earlier, but then it is necessary to import certain input to leverage on it to have an output in your economy for your people to consume. So if the import sources are frozen or getting frozen, then it becomes a problem, for the country. And I'm not surprised the finance minister highlighted on that.
What we'll do now, we need to find creative ways by which we can survive this, because we know that 60% of our revenue as a country, when we go look at the fiscals and the budgetary projections, are from external sources, whether they're from bonds, they are from grants, etc. So let's go listen to the finance minister. And then when we come back, we'll look at how we can do the re-engineering as a country, and perhaps we can salvage something. So let's watch this from Parliament.
The reason why every single person in this country must exercise the highest level of self-discipline is evidently clear in the economic numbers. The greater the level of self-discipline and civic responsibility we maintain in observing the enhanced protocols in hygiene and social distancing, the greater chances we have in avoiding mass job losses and its concomitant hardships. Already, Mr. Speaker, we are experiencing slowdown in economic activities in the various sectors of the economy as a result of the pandemic. This will altogether slow down economic growth considerably. Even though events on the pandemic are still unfolding, a preliminary analysis of the impact of the coronavirus menace on the real sector shows that the 2020 projected real GDP growth rate will decline, Mr. Speaker, from 6.8% to 2.6% with infection and cases, and 1.5% with a partial lockdown. Mr. Speaker, the projected growth will further worsen in the event of a full lockdown. Mr. Speaker, that is why, to mitigate the impact of the coronavirus on business and households and ensure that economic activities are sustained while minimizing job losses, the President on Friday, March 27, 2020, announced the establishment of the Coronavirus Alleviation Program, the CAP. The Ministry of Finance will immediately release an amount of 1 billion Ghana cedis upon approval by Parliament. The Ministry is proposing to use the equivalent of US $290 million from the Stabilization Fund for this. The CAP will focus on areas that will provide maximum results in alleviating the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, with a focus on protecting against job losses, protecting livelihoods, supporting small businesses, and ensuring the program is efficiently and sustainably implemented. The CAP will seek additional funding for the following purposes: promotion of selected industries to shore up production for export and import substitution, to support SMEs and create jobs, to partner with pension funds and insurance funds to create guarantees and first loss instruments to promote business. Mr. Speaker, my duty as Finance Minister is to begin speedily and responsibly the process of disbursing the funds immediately the amount is approved by this House. Targeted businesses and households would include those in the health sector, education sector, hospitality industry, SMEs, and households hit hard by the coronavirus. The specific details of the CAP and the instruments to allocate the resources will be fashioned out shortly.
And that is the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. But broadly, looking at the general impact, it means that we have to look at it from what the implication would be from the outside and also the inside. Dr. Lord Mensah, you're still with me, aren't you?
Yes, I am, Roland.
Great. Now let's start from this. Just over the last 10 to 14 hours, the Federal Reserve of the United States made a projection that some 47 million Americans would lose jobs. That would translate into about 32% unemployment rate in relation to the population of the United States. Before now, there was a stimulus package approved in the trillions. And also, the Federal Reserve had also reduced their interest rate subsequently with all the related factors just to cushion the American markets. How will these, because they are looking inwardly, affect what our projections would be when it comes to what our receipt would have been to augment our budget for this year?
Roland, we need to understand that this is a global menace. And as a global menace, obviously, we're going to have global stakeholders making decisions, and it's all going to be about providing stimulus package. And obviously, once bigger economies get stimulus package to liquidate their economies, definitely there will be a spillover into economies like Ghana here and there. Now, those environments are always prepared for situations like this. They knew very well that one day will come that there's going to be a problem of that sort. So they always have, let me put it in quote, insurance or buffers that when normally the economies are derailing as a result of a force majeure or something that they don't have control over, they kick in those insurance packages. And I presume that is what is calling for all this. And once the economies get liquidated, once the economies get liquid, obviously it will feed into our economies because of what? The integrations as a result of the way we import some goods and services from those directions. So for me, once they're tackling the in-house, and we should understand that, for every problem that happens, for instance, America will not look beyond America as we speak now. Every country is going to solve its own problem. And as a result of that, once they stabilize their in-house economic activities, obviously by extension, it will build up into our African market, for which Ghana is not excluded. So for me, it's a good signal for us. Once they stimulate the economies and the economies becomes vibrant again, obviously production is going to go on. There's going to be a spillover effect of this production across the globe. So I'm happy that the bigger economies have taken that stance.
But it will mean that we have to wait a bit as some of those dependents, because of where we find ourselves as countries, and Ghana being mentioned, we have to hold on before we get a bite of the good cherry. Now, that would also mean that the measures that have been announced by the finance minister will go a long way to help us. If you look at all the measures, we're talking the Heritage Fund, trying to tap into it, of course, a minority of difficulties and all. Which one stimulates you better? Do you think is more observably the better of the options?
Yeah, I would say that for the Heritage Fund, we are too quick to tap into it. This Heritage Fund was, established based on a certain act. And it is clear that, the Heritage Fund is purposely for long term. That is after we've depleted our, oil resources. Then the generations will come, what they would depend on might not necessarily be oil, because at that time we will not have oil at hand. And so we must rely on some reservations that did when we're actively producing oil. And so it is clear that, at this time that we find ourselves in, the Heritage Fund, if we are to tap into it, it would be something that is uncalled for. I think we'll be in a rush. But also, if you look at the Stabilization Fund, for me, yes, that one, it makes sense to tap into it. But even that one, I was happy the finance minister mentioned, partial tapping into the Stabilization Fund, not necessarily using the entire fund. It's just a matter of, going to Parliament to reduce the cap and then getting the excess, to be transferred into a contingency fund that will be used purposely to, finance this COVID-19 problem. But then also, we shouldn't be in a haste to take some decisions by using our own in-house, resources, because this is a global, situation. And with a global situation, we're going to get stimulus packages from a lot of these global stakeholders like IMF, like the World Bank, and all those. I've got from a grapevine yard that the IMF is even propagating or trying to go for kind of debt relief packages for developing countries, for which if it comes up and it falls on the Eurobond market, which is purely commercial, but who may never know. Out of this coronavirus, we might have debt negotiations, and with this debt negotiations, if you are to get kind of exemption in terms of your debt service for only this year, it will go a long way to help the economy, because just this year alone, we budgeted about 21-point-something billion for debt service alone, just interest services. So if we get a package that is more or less trying to give us a substance in some of the bond agreements that we went into, it would definitely go a long way to help the economy. So we should be careful how we take our decisions at this time, because it's a global menace, and in the end, we're going to have
their profitability objectives. But as a country, this is impacting us 9.5 billion as it is. And Dr. Lord Mensah is joining us. He is a senior lecturer, the finance department of the University of Ghana Business School. A big conversation that we want to have this morning. And straight away, let's get it grooving. Good morning to you, Dr. Lord Mensah. Can you hear me through the screen?
Good morning.
Great. Even before the finance minister's address to the plenary or to Parliament, what were you, being the science, picking on the ground as far as relatedly our economy was concerned?
Oh, yes. I'm not surprised the finance minister will go to Parliament for a statement as such. We're not at the mid of the year yet, but then the information trickling in and information that was coming out around the globe and even getting to us as a country, for me, it deems it fit for him to go to Parliament to go and make that statement. Now, remember, Ghana is well integrated to the global trade, when it comes to goods and services flow. Now, if you take our economy as a structure, you realize that the first 5 of our export destination comprises of the North America, the European countries, and then China. And then even our import sources, China forms part of the first 5. So when this coronavirus came to hit China, I knew very well that it would definitely get here. Remember, this disease flows with economics, and it goes with economic activities. So anywhere, you see strong integration with China, you will see this disease going there. And when it gets there, it has a way of crippling into the economy. And we should understand that health crisis always built up into economic crisis. Why is it so? Because economies are built around agents, and the agents are individuals and institutions. Institutions are even managed by, individuals. And when these agents are touched by any disease or any sickness, definitely it's going to retard, the flow of the economy. And so I'm not surprised to see the finance minister at Parliament as of yesterday.
You take a look at before now, or even though these figures are still relevant, the top 3 economies, we had the United States of America, China, and Japan following subsequently. And you look at what the projections were. Of course, China was supposed, after the 2021, 22, 23, 25 period, projected to overtake the United States. But these economies have impacted negatively on themselves because of the balance of trade in between or among those countries, especially. You look at China and the United States, the European Union and China. Now, how will the effect of coronavirus have a great implication on the way we do trade with these countries in the first place, before we even talk about how they affect our economy as a country?
Okay, Ghana is an import-driven economy, i.e. we import more than what we export. And as a result of that, anytime our ports get vibrant, that is when our economies also get vibrant. If you listen to the finance minister carefully, he made mention that containers are not arriving as expected. And that should tell you that the port is getting frozen every now and then as a result of, our import sources and where most of our imports are coming from, having this coronavirus. And so therefore, if you take the port and the port is not active, you ask yourself, where are we going to get the goods? And then possibly look at the services around those goods in-house or in Ghana. And so if our ports are not active, then obviously you should expect that in-country, we're not going to be active in terms of economic. Because our economy, that is the Ghanaian economy, is typically, economy that relies on, foreign inflows. That is goods and services that are coming from somewhere. So when the product gets in, that is when we attach most of the services to it by moving it from one point to the other. And out of that, government gets its revenue here and there. Apart from, the import duties that we are losing, we're also losing some essential taxes in-house as a result of not having enough goods to move around. So this issue would definitely have impact on our economy.
Look, the reality is that even for manufacturing, for those who tend to do it locally, they tend to source a lot of the raw materials from China and the Far East countries, etc. How are these, looking at how the finance minister has well articulated some of these negatives on the projections so far by way of the revenue that will be generated locally on the medium to long-term projections of the country and the sectors that we have, manufacturing, agriculture, and the other value chains?
Yes, clearly, it's clear that most of the input for our manufacturing sector and the agriculture sector are imported, and mostly imported from China. And so if Chinese is having a problem with coronavirus, it means in-house they themselves will struggle. And for them to pick up the economies and then restructure it, for them to look at exporting to other economies, it would take some time. And that is how we are going to fill it in the medium to long term. That is a way of having this our integration of trade with China coming down over the years ahead of us. So effectively, you could see clearly that we've started having the toll. As containers are not arriving, obviously it's going to have impact on our input to some of the sectors of the economy. Remember, Ghana is an import-driven economy, as I said earlier, but then it is necessary to import certain input to leverage on it to have an output in your economy for your people to consume. So if the import sources are frozen or getting frozen, then it becomes a problem, for the country. And I'm not surprised the finance minister highlighted on that.
What we'll do now, we need to find creative ways by which we can survive this, because we know that 60% of our revenue as a country, when we go look at the fiscals and the budgetary projections, are from external sources, whether they're from bonds, they are from grants, etc. So let's go listen to the finance minister. And then when we come back, we'll look at how we can do the re-engineering as a country, and perhaps we can salvage something. So let's watch this from Parliament.
The reason why every single person in this country must exercise the highest level of self-discipline is evidently clear in the economic numbers. The greater the level of self-discipline and civic responsibility we maintain in observing the enhanced protocols in hygiene and social distancing, the greater chances we have in avoiding mass job losses and its concomitant hardships. Already, Mr. Speaker, we are experiencing slowdown in economic activities in the various sectors of the economy as a result of the pandemic. This will altogether slow down economic growth considerably. Even though events on the pandemic are still unfolding, a preliminary analysis of the impact of the coronavirus menace on the real sector shows that the 2020 projected real GDP growth rate could decline, Mr. Speaker, from 6.8% to 2.6% with infection and cases, and 1.5% with a partial lockdown. Mr. Speaker, the projected growth will further worsen in the event of a full lockdown. Mr. Speaker, that is why, to mitigate the impact of the coronavirus on business and households and ensure that economic activities are sustained while minimizing job losses, the President on Friday, March 27, 2020, announced the establishment of the Coronavirus Alleviation Program, the CAP. The Ministry of Finance will immediately release an amount of 1 billion Ghana cedis upon approval by Parliament. The Ministry is proposing to use the equivalent of US 290 million from the Stabilization Fund for this. The CAP will focus on areas that will provide maximum results in alleviating the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, with a focus on protecting against job losses, protecting livelihoods, supporting small businesses, and ensuring the program is efficiently and sustainably implemented. The CAP will seek additional funding for the following purposes: promotion of selected industries to shore up production for export and import substitution, to support SMEs and create jobs, to partner with pension funds and insurance funds, to create guarantees and first loss instruments to promote business. Mr. Speaker, my duty as Finance Minister is to begin speedily and responsibly the process of disbursing the funds immediately the amount is approved by this House. Targeted businesses and households would include those in the health sector, education sector, hospitality industry, SMEs, and households hit hard by the coronavirus. The specific details of the CAP and the instruments to allocate the resources will be fashioned out shortly.
And that is the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. But broadly, looking at the general impact, it means that we have to look at it from what the implication would be from the outside and also the inside. Dr. Loud-Mensah, you're still with me, aren't you?
Yes, I am, Roland.
Great. Now let's start from this. Just over the last 10 to 14 hours, the Federal Reserve of the United States made a projection that some 47 million Americans would lose jobs. That would translate into about 32% unemployment rate in relation to the population of the United States. Before now, there was a stimulus package approved in the trillions. And also, the Federal Reserve had also reduced the interest rate subsequently with all the related factors just to cushion the American markets. How will these, because they are looking inwardly, affect what our projections would be when it comes to what our receipt would have been to augment our budget for this year?
Roland, we need to understand that this is a global menace. And as a global menace, obviously, we're going to have global stakeholders making decisions, and it's all going to be about providing stimulus package. And obviously, once bigger economies get stimulus package to liquidate their economies, definitely there will be a spillover into economies like Ghana here and there. Now, those environments are always prepared for situations like this. They knew very well that one day will come that there's going to be a problem of that sort. So they always have, let me put it in quote, insurance or buffers that when normally the economies are derailing as a result of a force majeure or something that they don't have control over, they kick in those insurance packages. And I presume that is what is calling for all this. And once the economies get liquidated, once the economies get liquid, obviously it will feed into our economies because of what? The integrations as a result of the way we import some goods and services from those directions. So for me, once they're tackling the in-house, and we should understand that, for every problem that happens, for instance, America will not look beyond America as we speak now. Every country is going to solve its own problem. And as a result of that, once they stabilize their in-house economic activities, obviously by extension, it will build up into our African market, for which Ghana is not excluded. So for me, it's a good signal for us. Once they stimulate the economies and the economies becomes vibrant again, obviously production is going to go on. There's going to be a spillover effect of this production across the globe. So I'm happy that the bigger economies have taken that stand.
But it will mean that we have to wait a bit as some of those dependents, because of where we find ourselves as countries, and Ghana being mentioned, we have to hold on before we get a bite of the good cherry. Now, that would also mean that the measures that have been announced by the finance minister will go a long way to help us. If you look at all the measures, we're talking the Heritage Fund, trying to tap into it, of course, a minority of difficulties and all. Which one stimulates you better? Do you think is more observably the better of the options?
Yeah, I would say that for the Heritage Fund, we are too quick to tap into it. This Heritage Fund was, established based on a certain act. And it is clear that, the Heritage Fund is purposely for long term. That is after we've depleted our, oil resources. Then the generations will come, what they would depend on might not necessarily be oil, because at that time we will not have oil at hand. And so we must rely on some reservations that we did when we're actively producing oil. And so it is clear that, at this time that we find ourselves in, the Heritage Fund, if we are to tap into it, it would be something that is uncalled for. I think we'll be in a rush. But also, if you look at the Stabilization Fund, for me, yes, that one, it makes sense to tap into it. But even that one, I was happy the finance minister mentioned, partial tapping into the Stabilization Fund, not necessarily using the entire fund. It's just a matter of, going to Parliament to reduce the cap and then getting the excess, to be transferred into a contingency fund that will be used purposely to, finance this COVID-19 problem. But then also, we shouldn't be in a haste to take some decisions by using our own in-house, resources, because this is a global, situation. And with the global situation, we're going to get stimulus packages from a lot of these global stakeholders like IMF, like the World Bank and all those. I've got from a grapevine yard that, the IMF is even, propagating or trying to go for kind of debt relief packages for developing countries, for which if it comes up and it falls on the Eurobond market, which is purely commercial, but who may never know. Out of this coronavirus, we might have debt negotiations. And with this debt negotiations, if you are to, get kind of exemption in terms of your debt service for only this year, it will go a long way to help the economy. Because just this year alone, we budgeted about 21-point-something billion for, debt service alone, just interest services. So if we get a package that is more or less trying to give us a substance in some of the bond agreements that we went into, it would definitely go a long way to help the economy. So we should be careful how we take our decisions at this time, because it's a global menace, and in the end, we're going to have a lot of stimulus packages from the global stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier.
The entire capitalization of this fund, the asset of the fund is now pegged at just a little over $520 million. It speaks volumes about what we've been able to get so far accruing into the fund. But if we have people, leaders like the Member of Parliament for Kusogu, John Jinapo, saying the government rather needs to tighten its fiscal spending at the end of the day to make sure that it sends a good signal. Is that a better alternative than government saying that it wants to tap into this fund, perhaps use that as some sort of a stimulus package, either for businesses or some means testing done to make sure the right categories of the economy get access?
Yeah, normally in times like this, it is very clear that you take a conservative measure. You don't turn out to be aggressive as expected, because if you picked maybe 110 ministers, because when you assume power, It was you want to be active. You know, you want to make sure that you get to every part of the economy. Obviously, at this time, you would like to cut down those spending because of this disease. And in the end, it's a way of building up into your expenditure, you know, for which you reduce your expenditure. We shouldn't only target a revenue side when we want to be conserved, you know. We should look at the expenditure side as well. And then also, let's look at some of the benefit and some of the cost that some of these ministries have given us. If the benefit outweighs the cost, then it won't be a matter of scrapping some of those positions. But then in the end, we, as a nation, we might benefit from it in the long term. So for me, if they are sitting in parliament,
how many
more
minutes
information than as we sit here we have. And so if they have done the analysis and they realize that, you know, those executive expenditure is taking a toll on our budget, therefore we might be able to save more to push into the COVID-19 fund. I think it's a good call.
Now let me just take you through another member on the side of Parliament of his, and that's Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, Member of Parliament from Notong. And he has these 8 pointers that he makes a great publication about. It's received massive endorsement on social media. And the first suggests that we should have a 50% pay cut for all political office holders, reduce by 60% the number of ministers and presidential staffers, close and realign many of the ministries which would become redundant after the ministerial downsizing, lay off all personnel, special assistance to ministers and presidential staffers, suspend all ex gratia payments. Now, we'll just lock it there. What's your opinion so far?
Well, I think it is clear that definitely you're going to reduce, you know, expenditure when you come up with all these measures. But the question is, how much can you save relative to the possible alternative source of funds that we can have in a cheaper cost, or in a possibly, if you put out these measures, it might cost you more than, you know, the benefit that you reap from the measures. Now, cutting down ministers by 50%. Remember, it will call up for economic restructuring because we've dealt with huge numbers of ministers for all this while. And so if you reduce it by 50%, it has to call for risk, and the restructuring will come at a cost. So if you put all this into perspective, this is going to be a knee-jerk decision that can easily cost us even more than what is expected as benefit from this cut downs of those ex gratia and then laying off personal assistant and all those. So for me, I think at this time, we need emergency funds, all right, but then it's a no-no as far as the Heritage Fund is concerned. That's why I mentioned earlier that we shouldn't take any decision that in the long run will come at a cost at this time. Because like I mentioned earlier, if you cut your ministers, you have to go through some restructuring process. Ghana, over the years, as far as our democratic dispensation is concerned, I've not seen any administration that has run the country with less than 60 ministers before. So we have to be careful how we go about this. And for me, at this time that we find ourselves, I will not call in for that because of the restructuring component that we need. Or it will happen that we have to merge some ministries and all those readjustment costs and all those that will come in. I will not encourage that, but rather we should look at, you know, possibilities of cutting down some essential expenditures that are not necessarily needed at this time of our what we call it, our COVID-19 situation. But then let's look at the expenditure side during this time. It has to be target-based. If you listen to the finance minister carefully, he mentioned hospitality industries and all those airline industries, packages for them to ensure. Those ones, for me, are not proper kind of packages to stimulate the economy. In a sense that if you take hospitality, the services they render are mostly leisure and are mostly out of happiness that people go to patronize these services. And if people are not happy and people are not comfortable, even leaving their homes, how would they go and enjoy facilities elsewhere that will give them comfort? So for me, I think those areas if we are to send some stimulus packages there or give some stimulus packages through the corridors of the bank to those leisure offering sectors, we have to be careful. We might spend it and will not make impact in the economy.
Now, you go to 10, and he says repeal all tax waivers granted in recent years for non-essential services. And then up there, it says freeze projects like the new passport office building, Marine Drive project, National Cathedral. Are they quite important when it comes to all these expenditures that you talk about?
Yeah, you know, we mentioned earlier that in our 2020 budget, you know, capital expenditure was about 9 billion as indicated. Now, this 9 billion, some of the projects that were outlined in the 9 billion, I would say, for me, we have to look at it carefully. And I think the finance minister hinted on that, telling us that, you know, capital expenditure will be cut. But then there are other expenditures that, if you look on our budget, especially the expenditure side, clearly, for me, they are not earmarked expenditure. And those ones, if you put them together, will be about 18 billion. That is expenditure to the ministries in the form of grants, and then other expenditures in a corporate world budget, we call it miscellaneous. If you put that together, it's about 18 billion. And if you scrap this part of the budget, I don't think the economy will be shifted in a structured way as expected. So for me, we should really look at our expenditure. And I'm happy that he's giving us a hint that we'll reduce our expenditure with time.
Okay, you're a man of big English. You're a doctor, PhD. So perhaps we need to break it down. The average orange seller, somebody who is operating a mid-sized business, let's say in Newtown or somewhere at Swansea or somewhere, who would need these confectionery shops to be restocked, etc. Somebody who is operating a small-sized business in either putting together some catering services, etc. Even if not for this coronavirus, we didn't know that we could produce sanitizers in abundance, okay? For which now we even have oversupply, we can say that. So how do we make sure that the ordinary business person, small, medium size, gets to have access to packages? Whether they will be lodged at the financial institutions, they can access at minimal rate, etc. What would be your own suggestion when it comes to this?
Oh, well, very good. A lot of packages came up in the statement yesterday. And you see, when you are providing stimulus package in economies like Ghana, which is more informally dominated, chunk of the packages are not supposed to go through the corridors of the bank. I.e., you know, when we had this COVID-19, the Bank of Ghana responded by reducing the, what we call it, the monetary policy rate by 1.5%, which has been, in the past 5 consecutive times, is one of the biggest reduction we've had in the past. If it goes through the corridors of the bank, it will be difficult to touch the informal sector. However, if you provide it in a form of maybe reduction in fuel, if you provide it in a form of maybe reduction in phone calls, okay, it puts money directly into the people's pocket. It put a reduction in mobile money transfers, okay? That is in terms of percentages that you charge on it, the charges that you put on mobile money transfers. It put money indirectly into the individual household pocket. So if you ask me whether the orange seller, the government cannot put money in a sack and then be distributing it because of the nature of our economy. Somebody would take the money and even go and sleep on it without the money being active in the economy. So for me, there are so many ways. You can look at essential services that are well spread across the country. And I gave you a typical example, mobile patronage. And if you look at mobile money and then even credits that are bought here and there, you can channel some of these subsidies through that direction, absorb part of it, and in a way, it will put money, you know, indirectly into the people's pocket.
So that mobile money bit, you know, they have financial services stream that they gave. So you have some mobile money loans that could be accessed. You're saying that if we could have some packages there, then it means that ordinary people, those at the micro level, would have access?
Yeah, exactly. It could be in the form of buying even a credit. So if you buy 1 cedi, if you buy maybe 1 cedi, you are entitled to maybe 2 cedi, 50. It can be doubled in a way. It means next time, the next 1 cedi you're supposed to buy is money to your pocket indirectly.
Well, we have to take a look at comprehensive measures so far. What should we be doing? We know that prices have increased over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. But looking at the way retail, if you look at trade and commerce is conducted locally, the prices just don't come down after they've gone up. What would you advise?
No, you're right. I mean, prices are going up because of the panic situation that we find ourselves in. But over the days ahead, if we move goods from one point to the other at a cheaper cost, it will have its own way of building up into prices. So for me, those are temporary adjustment in prices, and in the end, once things comes down, it will slowly come. Prices are going to be slowly drop down over the days ahead of us. So for me, it was as a result of not having enough information on this COVID-19. How long it will stay, that is what has caused all this. But as we go by the days and then, information took us in, I think things will be relaxed and prices will drop to its normal level.
Well, thank you very much. This conversation has been comprehensive. We've tackled everything from the macro level to the micro level as well. And I hope that all of you have had some cues to pick on this as far as what is happening and what impact it would have or not on the economy. Dr. Lord Mensah, thank you for this comprehensive contribution to discussions this morning. Dr. Lord Mensah is a senior lecturer with the Finance Department of the University of Ghana Business School, helping us with how the coronavirus infection and the pandemic itself is going to impact our economy. And we're encouraging you. 054-010-909 is our WhatsApp platform. Make sure you send us more of your messages, and I have a couple of them already. This one will take comprehensive look at some of these messages as we move on.
And it's day 2 of a partial lockdown here in the Greater Accra region and in Kumasi as well. Yesterday, there was a directive from the Chief Justice, Enini Yeboah. He's directed that all legal cases in Greater Accra and Kumasi should be adjourned to May and June 2020 following the restrictions of movement of persons resident in these areas in the wake of the COVID-19. Well, although the president exempted members of the judiciary from partial lockdown, Justice Enini Yeboah said lawyers, litigants and other court users do not fall under the exempt category and must therefore stay at home. In a statement, the Chief Justice said, quote, "For these reasons, registrars are directed to adjourn all cases listed during this period to dates in May and June 2020, unquote. However, some courts in the affected regions have been designated to deal with critical cases such as breaches arising from the restriction orders and other criminal matters. The Supreme Court and Court of Appeal are also available to handle urgent cases as may be determined by the Chief Justice during this period. So what do lawyers make of this directive and what are the implications? We'll also touch on those designated courts that will deal with breaches. How smoothly can justice be delivered in these times? Joining us via phone is a man who is very familiar with litigation and mining law and also corporate law cases. Mr. Martin Pebu joins us for a conversation on this. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good morning, Mama V.
I have to personally ask you how you're keeping safe. Are you still actively working?
Oh, yes, working, but we work from home. And
okay.
Yesterday, well, I had to go to Kumasi. I had this critical court case there. I left on Sunday, attended court, and came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess this directive didn't affect your case yesterday?
And no, not as at that time, because as of yesterday morning, generally, lawyers were allowed to go to court if they felt the case was critical. But with the new directive, it means that now we will basically attend court for only criminal matters and then other cases involving the imposition of the restriction. So it means that the attendance of lawyers in court has been drastically cut down.
Okay. And how is that affecting, or how's that going to affect lawyers and the cases that you're handling?
Okay, so the positive side is that generally this would help us, at least to the extent that we are not going out, it would help to reduce the potential risk of contracting the virus. I think at this time I would borrow the words of the education teacher who says the virus is like when you move with it. If you stop, it also stops. So by essentially asking us to stay at home, basically I think that the directive will help us to reduce the risk of contracting the virus. And monitoring bigger platforms, I think that an overwhelming majority of our members agree with the directive. But they just want it to be very clear that they should stay at home and not. So it's a good effort. It's good because we need to be healthy first and stay alive first in order to be able to practice another day. It's like they say, he who fights and runs lives to fight another day. So let's stay at home. When it's over, we can go back to work.
Already some people say that justice delivery is very slow. And with these directives that have been given just yesterday, what are the possible implications to people who are already battling their issues in court?
Okay, yes, so that's right. So let's see that, actually, in the circumstances, we have no option. Yes, justice delivery may be. But looking at it, it doesn't also mean that we should be heedless and continue attending court as if nothing is happening. As we all agree now, we are not in normal times. So I beg clients to be a bit more patient. These are not ordinary times. They are very dangerous times. So we need to do things differently. Hopefully, in a month or two, this thing should pass. Then we can return to work. You say, yes.
Talk about the designated courts to deal with the breaches that would arise during these times. How difficult a task would it be to try these particular cases in terms of breaches? Okay,
so Mama, the starting point is that, we should not be eager to start trying people for the breach. That's not the starting point. Criminal prosecution, no. So, they should have said it on another platform. The way these things have happened, naturally, people need some time to adjust to the new rules, okay? So, and I'm sure you've heard of a few cases where it's alleged that the police have utilized it. Look, that thing must stop. It really must stop. When you pass any law, you naturally will need some time to sensitize people. You see, Mama, you and I may be privileged, but for some people, times are really hard. So, the way they find time to understand what's going on and the rest, it's not the same as people are parade. So all I'm asking for is that we naturally would need some moratorium before we start prosecuting. So this is not the time to start prosecuting. Rather, this is the time to ramp up education to get all of our citizens on board, all the people in Ghana. Then after a while, look at prosecution. I think we are too hard on ourselves. Even because of our rush to pass the law, there was this provision I do. Can you imagine? They're fined 12,000 to 50,000. Imagine, look, people who earn 10 a day, 15 Ghana a day, they are the people most likely to reach this because they don't have savings to fall on. So after a day or two, they are most likely to step out to work out a living or that. And they are the people who are most likely to fall prey to the law. So some of these things, I think we are just too hard on ourselves. So can you imagine? There is another provision about the minimum of 4 years extension. I mean, it just looks like it's good. I was like, is this a mockery? No, I know that these are very important times, but that is not how to go about law. You don't make a law in such a way that you would, when you unleash it on citizens, somebody would rather even think that the lawmaker is place, not the citizen. Look, in South Africa, their maximum sentence is 6 months, and then we put in minimum 4 years. I don't know why we think that old thinking that ramp up sentences so that would scare people. No, that's not it. Because you don't, no matter what, some people will fall foul of the law. And then you see that you will be compelling the judge to implement such a monstrous law. I don't know where we're looking. You know, I think we're also still working. I just didn't see that provision. Minimum of 4 years for breaching the imposition of restrictions. It is crazy. Next time, maybe as citizens, we should be more vigilant. We should have people. You see, that's one thing that our society lacks. We should fund civil society organizations that can dedicate themselves to watching out for this. But Mama Viana, you are talking to me at the time they were passing this law. Most of the time, I was going to court. A lot of lawyers were sitting trying to serve clients. So our civil occupation was not scrutinizing their case. But now that, you know, we've been kind of locked down, there's more time, and because we asked to do this, I went to read again. Then I saw the penalties. I was like, I was really serious. No, we shouldn't do that as a nation to ourselves. So in South Africa, where they put the maximum at 6 months, is it that if you cut in South Africa, the bladder cancer is different from the bladder cancer of the Ghanaians? You know?
But I guess it's too late now. We all missed it, didn't we?
It's not late. What we need to do is that we have to make it very clear to the authorities that prosecuting people should not be the emphasis now. Prosecute, just like, remember, we passed a law on Okada. Okada. You know, it's been several years now. We are not able to implement it as such, right? So this one is not encouraging the truth be told. The law must be such that it helps citizens. It shouldn't serve as a trap. The law shouldn't destroy citizens. So what we're saying is that at this time, we should ramp up education. And in actual fact, the police and the military themselves showed the way in their cities before the 1 a.m. Start time on Sunday. What they said was that it's going to be a humane exercise. It's a humanitarian exercise, not a combative operation. So we want to hold them to that. So if they are doing a humanitarian operation, of course, as much as possible, you be delayed. Let's not emphasize prostitution. No. Let's not destroy our own citizens. Let's take it one day at a time. We continue to educate citizens. We continue to appeal to them, have a kind of moral system. And then with time, we will see whether we should prosecute people in court over this restriction.
So as we're here, let me ask about some concerns that have been raised with videos. And these days, you want to be careful, you know, what you take in as proper news, especially when it's coming from social media. We've seen some people being punished as a result of so-called breaches of these directives. Which one is better? Going that you say is harsh in some instances, or asking them to either kneel, squat, or do some instant punishment?
I think this is what we're thought to call being caught in a rock and a hard place, right? Neither is good for us as people in Ghana today. Neither is good. As I've stated, and I'm sure the authorities are well aware, look, we can't unleash police and military on citizens to brutalize us. No, not when we are already stressed by the situation. Can't. So I think I've read one circular or something, or a piece item from the police service where they say they are looking for the officer who allegedly meted out one of the brutal incidents. Yes, that's the way. So I think, Manazi, that's the one that is to look for and follow up on it. Because, look, the police and the military are to serve us. And we too, as citizens, must play our part. Yes, we must cooperate.
Okay, but let's be a bit realistic. We're trying to even ease the prisons, and if you check what's going on in other countries, because they don't want the numbers. You can't social distance in a situation like that. When you arrest a person who breaches the law now, what do you do to them? Take them to the cells, to the prisons?
No. The Chief Justice brought out a directive earlier on that at this time it's encouraging judges to grant bail. And of course, that would extend to the police. Yes. So it's not the number. So when it comes to this imposition of the restrictions, it's not something I expect that people should be thrown into police custody, left, right, center. No. They would do it sparingly. Yes, they would do it sparingly, you know. Yes, because the Chief Justice has made it very clear, he's given a directive to judges to grant bail generously at this time. Because you don't want the remand of somebody to rather lead to death. Because that would then create other complex where people may want to sue government over not keeping the facilities well, leading to the spread of the disease. So it's a very complex area. That's why the Chief Justice in his wisdom has already issued a directive imploring judges to grant bail. And I think the police, don't forget the police, the work that they do in terms of keeping, police have power to keep a person only for 48 hours. And even that one, the Supreme Court has made it clear, in December 2018, that, look, you really need to keep the person. So when in these dangerous times, you really need to keep the person. The person is flouted the restrictions. As we said, we are making a strong case that at this time, we don't begin prosecutions yet. So you escort him to his home. And then, of course, they should also have a way of bringing this to the attention of the general public. But the and journalists are working, so you bring such stories out. So after a while, it is that some citizens are some recalcitrant. Yes, then those may be detained for some hours and probably taken to court for a judge to determine whether to grant bail or not to grant.
If you check reactions, particularly when you spot these abuses on social media, on Facebook, there are a lot of people who seem excited about the instant punishment. People are saying, yes, it's good. I mean, they can't stick to simple instructions. They deserve it. So I want you to just tell us the difference before you go between curfew and lockdown.
The curfew usually comes in the nature of, it's an executive instrument. Okay, that's usually signed by the Minister of Interior. So they would say, let's say between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. or any other time, nobody should go out. Okay? So that one has specific time different lines within a 24-hour cycle where people are told not to go out. Okay, and then for the rest of the day, they are allowed to move out. But this imposition of restrictions has a lot of exceptions. You can go out to get banking services. You can get what you call it, gas, petroleum products, and all those other things. So this one is more humane. This one is far more humane. And so basically, this is the way I see it.
Okay. And those in my area, for instance, whose shops are still open? I mean, I saw a hairdressing salon. I saw a mobile money shop that was operating. Are those persons required to be operating at this time?
I think the following the information minister, mobile money has been defined to be part of banking. So in other words, somebody providing mobile money services is providing banking services. So he's exempt. But for hairdressing, it doesn't appear. I don't recollect that this is part of the exempt services in the executive instrument. So the hairdresser may need to check again with the authorities.
Mr. Martin Pebble, I am very grateful for your time this morning. Even as you keep your distance, please stay safe from COVID-19.
Thank you. Thank you, Mama.
That's Mr. Martin Pebble speaking to us about the directive issued by the Chief Justice yesterday. But we also went into other issues of what's happening. And it's day 2 of the enforcement of the restrictions imposed by President Akufo-Addo. Joy News checks reveal residents of Newtown are generally abiding by the directives, but persons allowed to work are feeling the brunt. Low food sales to drivers struggling to find passengers. Joseph Akable has the rest of the story.
This could well be a reflection of the impact of the restrictions that have been imposed by government. It's a commercial vehicle on an otherwise busy street trying to find individuals and take them along this road, the Newtown road towards Jowlu. But it's proving very difficult for them to get passengers here. As you may be aware, such vehicles have been left to go about their duties. That is if they are carrying people who are embarking on activities that have been tagged as essential. And so just few people are coming in. On a normal day, this is a car that should otherwise be easily full on the Newtown stretch. On my right-hand side is a food joint. It's also part of the essential service providers. And so you have individuals who have come in here to purchase food. I'm going to ask them about what they have been up to and what they find the social distancing to be. Hello, good morning.
Hello, morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
You live around here?
Yes, please.
Where are you going currently?
Right now, I'm going to work.
What work do you do? Okay. What specific work is it?
It's a restaurant work.
Okay, so you fall under the essential service provider.
Sure.
In terms of yesterday, you went to work as well, I guess?
Yes, please.
How was, in terms of the people coming to buy food at your place, how was it like for you?
Okay, the patronize to the place was very bad and very poor because of the incident that has happened. Nobody wants to come out to come and buy anything. They don't want to get infected.
But even before you get over to your workplace, you've come here to buy food. In terms of your movement around the neighborhood, how do you observe in terms of people obeying the social distancing, among other things?
Okay, from where I'm coming from now, it's okay. People are indoors, they don't come out. But when you come to the roadside, you see people going to work, going to buy whatever they want.
Yeah. If you compare that to the situation prior to the social distancing, do you see a lot of difference in there?
Yeah, I see a little, but because it's a partial something that we are doing, they've not put measures that will, let people see that this is something serious. Because everybody wants to get whatever he or she wants outside. So they don't think about they being with somebody who, whether the person has it or he doesn't have it, just to get what you want.
But do you feel safe moving around?
Yeah. I have my protective items in my bag. So whenever
What are those items? What and what?
My nose masks and my hand gloves. So when I get into the car, I just put them on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice day. And so there are still some others who are also here at this particular one. So they are moving into their cars, like you can see. She did indicate they are going out about their activities. I want to get closer to the driver and ask him something quickly because I realize it's a bit difficult for them to get passengers. Charlie, what do you want to say?
They're very boring. Now, first, almost reduce passengers. Now, at first, we have first 10 passengers. After only 6. And since in the crown, one bet you want to 3 crown, easy.
Confirm back one, so
be a new crown, so be a new crew. So be as royal.
But so, we okay, they'll feel safe about your activities, sir.
Yeah, me okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, you was talking about the fact that it's proven very difficult to find passengers to move around with, especially because of the fact that they have reduced, they've been asked to reduce the number of people they pick when they move about. And so it's proven very difficult for them to get as many passengers as they want. So he says first they take about 12 people. This time around they are taking just about 6 of them. And so that means that they are not making as much money as they ought to be making. Even aside from that, they are not also getting the 6 people. It's proving very difficult. And when he was parked here, where I started this report from, he was here for at least 10-15 minutes, which he says is not the norm usually. You can still see behind me the food joint here. I'm getting closer to ask her about how sales have been because it's an important part. There's essential service providers as well. What they compare first now about go from back
Umbaran so enye gigi say once no maba once no maba. Nti ma bebre atadwana so nti obi wa want me adwane. Obi wa so apa school. Nti kendi obapia beto kakra mo. Nti hu na etina ho.
Na se mo ba se na se mo pompe na se mo ko fie straight akwa dem sa.
Yeah, what dem be there. Can I say any son be? Am I didn't be fine to say net it home. When you my teneka embu.
Thank you very much. And so she talked about the fact that it's not been, in terms of sales, it's been on quite a low. You don't have many people coming here to buy food as was the case in times past. And so they come in quickly, they try to sell what they can sell, and afterwards they move away quickly from this particular area. We can come here and look at the streets. The streets look a bit empty than they usually are, except a few people that you have who are moving to the various food joints to buy food. So the streets on my right-hand side, you can see the streets going ahead. You just have some few people who are either going to collect water, which they are allowed to do because it's an essential commodity, and you have some few others who are also seated in front of their homes. And so what I can report here from Newtown is that the restrictions that were imposed by the government is in full force. You don't have as many people coming to the various locations as was the case in times past, and it's affecting almost every aspect of their lives. Joseph Akable reporting for Joy News from Newtown.
So that's Joseph Akable reporting from Newtown. We will be going to Afo in with the situation there. That's the thing I was sharing with Roland when we started the show. If you go and sell and nobody comes, would you go back tomorrow? I mean, what are you going to do with all the food that's left? It's a sad situation. I mean, it's just the situation that we find ourselves in. Drivers struggling to get passengers, food vendors also struggling to find people to buy their foods. These are hard times, and these are not normal times. It brings back some of the words that our president has shared, which has been trending even in this COVID-19 times, Roland.
Yeah, definitely. And first, let's take you to our Facebook page where we have a number of reactions to what content we're giving you this morning. And Mamavi, it's quite interesting what people think, the situations they're going through. We'll take them to our Facebook page first before we go on to Twitter and go and look at the president's complimentary comment he's getting following his speech the last time. Lillian Akosia Bediakun says, President Akufo-Addo, please, Ghanaians, especially the ones in rural areas, need day-to-day information to go about their business. And that's where I always advocate. That's where we need the MMDCEs to work, because when the ministers and things do the press conferences and all, they are the head of security for their areas. They need to go publicize and educate people. Unfortunately, Eslo also has closed down all local radio stations. For God's sake, let her open the radio stations now.
Okay, so that is not true. You know, that second bit about the message is not true.
So let's go up, and some of the comments not very complimentary. And if you take a look at them as well.
So whilst we get the comments ready, we will open the phone lines on 030221169102. So get ready to give us a call in about 4 minutes. Roland is on the messages.
Yes, so we have a couple of the messages as well. But straight away, let's take you also to Twitter, where the president... but I have this, let me just quickly... I can tell you the Indians are law-abiding than us, and we...
Master, you are not in India.
Yeah, you know. And even then, Krampo, their military service are enforcing the law by whipping people. That's what
so you see, that's the question I was asking Mr. Pebu. People are excited about what's happening. Wait until it happens to you.
Well, if you know you're in a good state, it won't happen to you. That's
yeah, but it doesn't mean you should whip me.
Yeah, so let's, we all need to work together after this virus. Yeah, true. Let's go. And that's from Robert from Mankasim. And we also do have a couple of them just streaming in. I don't know, we have 20. All right, so now let's get you to Twitter, and it's where the president has been getting some reactions to this one. It's a pinned tweet. You have a pinned tweet. It says, we know how to bring the economy back to life, but We do not know. What we do not know is how to bring people back to life. And first, the WHO boss, Dr. Tedros, was the first to retweet this with a comment, actually. And subsequently, we've had a number of accolades coming, complimenting the president for this comment in his speech. And straight away, we have this one from the WHO boss who says, "Thank you for sending such a wonderful message to the world." That was as early as a couple of days ago. My brother at Akufo-Addo, that's N. Akufo-Addo, the president of Ghana, together for a healthier, safer, fairer world, together against COVID-19. And we'll go more. You will be amazed. Piers Morgan says, President of Ghana perfectly spells out the bottom line. Apart from the tweet on his morning show, he had also made comment. Now, that was on live TV, I tell you. Very complimentary. And then we have very prominent Professor McDonnell, and she said, Ghana's president get what ours does not. She is a prominent professor in the United States of America. And of course, this is a straight dig at her president, President Donald Trump, one of my favorite presidents of the world.
Yesterday, there was a briefing. And if we can, we'll just bring you back some of his comments.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
And we have this one in Spanish. If we go to translate tweet, we'll get to know what it says.
So on President Akufo-Addo?
Yeah,
okay.
Same compliment. El Presidente de Ghana de Mal. Please, let's move on to the next one. This is quite interesting.
What does it mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean, Roland? Whatever you said. Did you read that well?
Let's move on. Spanish is not. So we have this one. This gentleman is an Indian, and I follow him, and he makes very hilarious but very important tweet as well. It says the quote of the year: "We know how to bring the economy back to life. What we do not know is how to bring back people." And Prof. Shafi Ahmed goes with the handle Shafi Ahmed 5. Go follow him. It's quite interesting when you follow him. Let's move on as well. I have a couple. Natalie Martinek, also one of the leading academics. It says a leader who has priorities straight. Yeah, we have to love what we have. We are all seeing what happens when leaders and society put system health above collective well-being. May we remember to cherish life more than any structure and system, and never forget. And we should also tell you, we'll go to Asafo, Erastus Asaridonko, and we'll check his feed and see whether he has a feed, and quickly we'll stream there. And Mama V, quite interesting.
There's the last one I hear.
No, this is the last one.
This is.
Yeah.
I'm just excited about the responses that this is given. I didn't pay attention to it. It's interesting that even in this, around this time, listen, we may not have the necessary structures. Our health system may not be as strong, but there's something that our president has said, which a lot of people are loving.
I have to say, this tweet especially, or the content of that speech, was a subject of some controversy about plagiarism, etc. But knowing that this has gotten the attention of world leaders and prominent people speaks volumes, because it means that they then will influence opinions better. And especially when we know that President Trump of the United States of America saying that, hold on, all is under control. All is under control. All is under control.
Charlie, he wanted to open up during Easter, didn't he? Now he's taking it back to,
I tell you,
to sometime in May or whatever it is.
You
can't, listen, you can't keep up. Things keep changing in the U.S. But we also want to say a very good morning to Mr. Kikimoto, who is under quarantine in a certain hotel. You've been there for about a week, but you say you are well. Maybe we could speak to you sometime.
You mean
Good
Dr.
morning.
Kikimoto?
Dr. Kikimoto is watching us right now.
Dr. Boy Kikimoto.
Yes, good morning to you, Doc. Stay with us. When we come back, we're activating the phone line so you can join us. We've talked about quite a number of things. We will go to Kumasi as well and check in Asafo, where Erastus Asaridonko is on standby. So stay with us. Don't flip. All right, thanks for staying with us. Two things we're doing right now. Well, a couple of things that we're doing. It's interesting that Dr. Boy Kikimoto is under quarantine somewhere. He's a Deputy Director, Veterinary Services, and I thought we would just call him up and check on him this morning. So he's joining us live now. Good morning to you, Doc.
Good morning. How are you, Mama V?
Oh, I am blessed. I'm doing fantastic. So where did you go? I mean, why have you been locked up?
Yeah, thanks for calling. I actually went out of the country to attend a meeting.
Okay. And you came back a week ago?
Yes, and I actually came the time they announced that they will close the border, so I had to return.
Okay. So
and upon arrival to them, this one too came up.
Okay. So how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine.
Have your samples been collected and tested?
Yes, it's tested. I've even received a letter from the minister thanking me that he's very happy I have a negative test.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why are you still in the hotel then?
The minister sent his letter to me. He said COVID-19 management team support. The national COVID-19 management team is happy to inform you of your test status. Your test, you tested negative for COVID-19. But the good news is good news for you. But you have to make sure you have to continue to live very good life so that you don't contract it again. It's a lengthy. The government will always continue to keep you in quarantine until this thing, and then a second test will be done.
Okay.
So it's fine. I mean, luckily you also know me as a public health person. These are some of my areas of specialization.
Great. So we need you out there quickly so that you can come back and help all of us.
Yes, because I'm part of the National Technical Coordinating Committee on Emergency, so these are part of what we are supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So when is your second test going to be then?
Yeah, it's likely to be within this week because normally when they do it first, they have to do one and then they do a second one. So I think it will be done this week.
Okay. So how are you keeping in touch with family?
Sorry?
How are you managing with the family situation?
Oh, it's fine. Absence? Every day I'm in touch with my family.
But they can't visit you.
No. Then the quarantine will be useless.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Kikimoto, it's good to hear from you. It's good that you're doing very well. We will check on you again, and hopefully we'll see you out next week.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Boy Kikimoto, I'm here, Roland.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm here. You didn't mind me, okay?
All right.
All right. So
that's Dr. Kikimoto there. Doing well. It's interesting. He's also under mandatory quarantine, but as you could hear, his test came back. The first test came back negative, and he's doing pretty okay in that hotel room. His next test is next week. Roland, we're going to check on Erastus. Unfortunately, we can't get videos to share with you, but Erastus can give us a situational report.
Yes, and live from Kumasi, our lead correspondent in Kumasi on coronavirus-related issues of disinfection and lockdown is Erastus Asari Donko, Emmanuel Love. Good morning to Erastus. Erastus, good morning. Erastus, good morning. Yeah, you can just have a feel of the sound just around him. It shows you what the sound bite is and how busy the place is. Not usually extremely busy just because of the lockdown, Mamavi.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is Erastus buying foodstuffs or something?
Yeah.
So hopefully Erastus can hear us. But let's pick your phone calls. 030221169102. And we're also going to be sharing some more videos that we picked up. Remember, a bit earlier, I was telling you about Edem. He did have a concert on Sunday. But let's check on Erastus. We'll talk about Edem a bit later.
Yes. Erastus, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Roland. There is something that is happening here that is worth mentioning at the moment. We do have a van, an orange van behind me right now, belongs to the KMA. Quite a number of people, there are over 20 crowded in that van. I'm understanding that all these people had been arrested because they were roaming about. They were found loitering around, gallivanting around in town. So they have been arrested. And currently they are in the cage vehicle at the moment. I'll try and have a conversation with one or two about why they are in this particular mess. But me papers ni paper ID adan se ma ko check ni $10 values ni o I go hospital na me kwa ko hadan this is where to me ko hadan and so mum ya almost match so he says that he went to the hospital and he has papers to prove that he went to the hospital to be checked, and then he was going to rent a room, and he was found by the soldiers and has been arrested at the moment.
Why are you there? Mitra town faka uno machine semen fokan. Mr. Prime, they tell me ban. Me can obio. Lipani ni muhashina mdene mebe chano na mdene ako. Eno enyo no semen fokan. Lipano so obe kumasi woni muha.
He is also saying he was doing another thing and he was found on the street and he has also been arrested. So I can count about 20 people crammed up in one vehicle belonging to the KMA. Currently, we have a task force, a combined team of police, military, and KMA city guards holding chains who are going around. This vehicle is following them, and they are asking people to enter when they meet them on the street. That is what is happening here at the Asafo coastal area at the moment.
Well, Erastus, that's comprehensive reports there from Asafo, but it speaks generally of what is happening in Kumasi in relation to enforcement, the lockdown, and related issues. And Erastus Asari Donko, our lead correspondent on the subject, in my opinion, in Kumasi, but it's just a self-opinion, right?
Well, join us at 10. We'll get you some videos and pictures of what Erastus is just telling us about. But right now, let's hear from you. Give us a call now. 0302-211-69-102. Ernest, good morning. Thank you for holding.
Good morning, Ernest.
Good morning. Hope you're doing good.
Well, we're good. We hope that you've lowered the volume of your sets.
Yeah. Please, I'd like to make some suggestions with regards to contact tracing. I believe we can go the Singaporean way. Singapore rolled out what they rolled out an app called Trace Together, right? And the app enables authorities using Bluetooth signals to identify people who've been exposed to persons infected with the virus. Okay, with the virus phones infected with within a 2 meter of each other, like the Bluetooth exchanges signals, allowing the app to make a record of the encounter. Okay. And I believe once we have that, it can go a long way in complementing the efforts of those engaged in contact tracing. I think that app, we need to have it here. It is extremely good because once you get into contact with an infected person, within a certain meter, the app picks up the information and records it. Okay, so it makes it easier tracing people who have come into contact with persons who have been infected.
All right.
And I think we can go ahead and do that.
Okay. We'll bounce that off with officials to see. We've got Michelle Roland. Michelle on the line.
Yeah, Michelle, where are you calling from? Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, Michelle, where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name is Isaac. I'm calling from Michelle Camp.
Oh, okay. You're rather calling from Michelle Camp. All right, Isaac, please go ahead. Any comments on the lockdown, your own experience at the finance minister's briefing, and then the Chief Justice saying the court suspended up to May or June?
I think so far the lockdown with me has been great. I've been in home observing the directive of the president. But then I want to use your medium to appeal to the general public. I have an issue with the enforcement agencies, how they are enforcing this directive of the president. You could see that from yesterday, a lot of people were not in town and all the roads were quiet and all that. But today, it seems it's quite different. I don't know whether the questions yesterday people people were asking which people are supposed to be exempted. You could hear that they were selling food, these people, and that people are hopped on it, and today they are all over in town. Looking at the reports all over, people are in town. My issue is that the security agencies must enforce the law. I think they are being lenient with us. We should enforce the law, else from the subsequent days coming, we would have a lot of people in town which we will not be able to control.
So you're talking about people around in Michelle Camp where you are. There are lots of people out there.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not surprised. You want the enforcement strict. Michelle Camp.
Thank you very much for sharing with us. Kamla or Kwabena? Okay, Kwabena, good morning.
Good morning, Mama.
Yes, Kwabena. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, hello, good morning, Mama.
Yes, good morning, Kwabena. I'm asking how you're doing.
I'm doing well.
Great. Very well, thank you. Make it snappy for us.
Oh, I thought on the Finance Minister's briefing concern about the Heritage Fund. You know, the need for the Heritage Fund. I mean, while people are here suffering,
wow.
And then attracting a lower interest. And then you go back the same these international market players and then go and borrow money at a higher interest rate. I don't see the reason why you should be using this money and making noise of it that this is for the future generation. What is the next generation? We are the future generation. But die right now. I mean, how can we give the next future generation? So I think to make use of the fund now.
Okay.
Just when we need it, but not in the future.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Kwabena. This is our last call, Roland.
Yeah, we have Robert. Robert, where are you calling from?
Oh, of course, Royal Volcanation now.
Oh, Roberto.
Oh, how could I? Yes.
Any prayers organized this done for us?
I'll come for my sanitizer.
You didn't.
Yeah, please do come.
No, right now you can't be walking around.
Have you organized any prayers for us? This done.
Yeah, you don't worry. After my submission, I'll do the prayer.
Please go ahead, Robert.
I'm just looking at the story about the JUSU issue. I'm just wondering what happened from the roadblocks, right from Accra all the way to JUSU before the people, the lorry was stopped. I think that, I don't know whether there was no roadblocks or the police did their usual thing. I mean, 2 cities and 5 cities, that they allowed the cargo to move.
Okay, maybe we're not going to assume they did what you just said.
Okay. Okay. And then number 2 is about the roadblocks. You know, from Mahia is one of the villages in Accra. From Mahia all the way to Awoshi to Baya, there was no single roadblock. I don't know what's happening there.
Okay.
And then also, in my area, the motor riders are moving with 2 people.
Okay.
And I know it's against the law. People are just moving around anyhow. And so the police, the enforcement must take its course. And then the last one is, journalists, I want you to follow up on the Obuo case.
Okay.
Obuo case at Reach now, because now the emergency of Reach, because of his mistake, the whole emergency center has been shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right.
Thank you, Roberto.
We have to go, Robert, but we're going to do the necessary follow-ups. Thank you very much. Just before we wrap up, we promised we were going to share some videos with you, some virtual activities. Here we go with Edem.
Well, so the pictures you're seeing is from Erastus Asari Donko in Asafo. And these are the arrested residents of Asafo and the rest of Kumasi who had converged there, flouting the lockdown regulations.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're just going to hold on to the videos. We promise you we'll bring you the videos, but let's stay with this. The arrest in Asafo. I think Erastus spoke to one person who said he was going to pay rent or something like that.
Yes, definitely.
But they've all been picked up.
And you can see that the security
the
forces also there trying to make sure that they do what they have to do. And this is in Asafo. And of course, well, that'll be it. We'll bring you more on Newsdex.
At 10 this morning. Okay, fortunately, we're able to share at least one of the videos with you. This is a concert. It's a virtual concert. It was organized by Edem on Sunday. We hope that you enjoyed. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.